Hello everyone. I am Mayanjali Bodla, but I go by Maya. I'm the founder and director of this conference, and I am absolutely thrilled to speak with you all today about something that really is quite important to me. I would first like to thank all of you guys for being here live to witness this conference and to be able to hear from our panelists directly. And just a side note, we will also be recording this conference, and it will be posted on the Empowering Tomorrow's Leaders website. So before we begin, I would like to first thank Girls Inc. for partnering with me and supporting this conference and its message. So for those of you who do not know, Girls Inc. is a nonprofit organization that plays a vital role in addressing the challenges of low self-esteem and self-confidence, and is dedicated to inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. They provide programs and experiences that help girls navigate gender, economic, and social barriers for them to grow up to be healthy, educated, and independent. Girls Bank has been a beacon of hope for many young girls, offering mentorship, educational programs, and a safe space to explore their potential. So, on the conference website, I have linked Girls Inc.'s information so that all the conference attendees can read about all the incredible work they do. So, again, I would like to thank Girls Inc. for supporting this conference and being such a fantastic program to address these topics. So, I really wish for this conference to serve as a platform for us to come together, share our experiences, and learn from one another. The goal is to help provide some of the tools and resources needed to build self esteem and confidence in young girls, empowering them to become the leaders of tomorrow. In today's fast paced world, young girls face numerous challenges that can impact their self esteem and self confidence. From societal pressures to academic expectations, the journey of self discovery can be daunting. This conference is designed to address these challenges head on and provide a supportive environment where girls can thrive. The reason why I chose to target this conference for girls age 11 to 21 is because of my own personal experience with growing up and developing into the person I am today. This age range is really a time where we are discovering our personalities and our sense of personal style and self. And it really is quite difficult as we transition from a kid to a teen to a young adult. To be honest, for years I lacked self confidence in my abilities, and this manifested itself into the opportunities I missed out on because I was scared to put myself out there and truly be myself without fear of failure or embarrassment. I am naturally a very extroverted person, but this does not mean I am someone who does not worry about how I am seen or perceived by the world, which unfortunately has made it so I regret a lot of things I could have done when I was younger. But I will say, high school changed a lot of that for me and gave me more opportunities to put myself out there, even though I had the fear of taking that first step. But it really was as simple as that, taking that first step, even though I was afraid of what could happen. But once I did, everything became so much easier. And that is what I hope this conference will do for all of you, inspire you to take that first step. So for me, the first step was actually in Scouts. I was the head of my troop, but hadn't been granted the opportunity to do anything that really had me embody the role as a leader. COVID had prevented us from going out to do activities where I had the chance to lead my group. So I had no real idea of what a leader was. But it wasn't until my sophomore year of high school where I was presented a chance. For more than 9 days, I was solely in charge of 24 scouts, ranging from ages 11 to 17, while I myself was only 15. It certainly was a very daunting task, and I felt like a fish out of water, completely out of my comfort zone. Who was I to tell others what to do? I truly was scared, but in the back of my mind, I just continued to repeat myself. You are capable, you are strong, and fully ready to do this. And even though I was worried out of my mind, I did do it. I successfully managed to lead an entire troop of scouts for more than a week, arguably more than successfully. And from that moment on, things changed for me. I was given that opportunity and ran with it despite my worries. I just kept going on from there, signing up for more and more things. I joined the marching band and became the section leader in under a year. I was nominated to attend a statewide program in Sacramento as an inaugural class of girls being allowed in the program, as previously it was a boys only event. I took every chance I got, and my confidence and my self-esteem grew substantially. I feel empowered and proud of myself and what I now know that I am fully able to do. which is why I'm here talking to you about what I learned and hope at least some of you, and it's some of my words, will resonate with you. Empowering young girls is not just important, it is essential. When girls believe in themselves and their ability, they are more likely to pursue their dreams, take on leadership roles, and make a positive impact on their communities and the world, like I was able to do. And once I was able to simply take that first step and put that belief in myself, so many doors were unlocked for me. And that is not to mean I do not get worried or nervous. Speaking in front of all of you is a gift, but I cannot lie and say it does not cause me even the smallest bit of anxiety. But I'm still going forward with it and not holding myself back anymore. By fostering self confidence and self esteem, we are laying the foundation for a generation of empowered women who will lead with integrity, compassion, and resilience. And so, with that, I would like to transition to our first panel, Empowering Through Experience, an open conversation with female leaders. So, thank you. We will now move on to our first panel. So, in this panel, experience generosity of spirit and a strong desire to assist the next generation of women leaders. 3 women will share their journeys. They will openly discuss their experiences, what barriers they faced, and how they overcame these barriers, and their tips and advice of what they would give to their younger self. This is an open and honest conversation about being women in today's working environment, as well as the tools that are necessary to succeed. Let us start with introducing our 3 panelists, Dr. Bridget Gergens, Dr. Sangeeta Gupta, and Mrs. Linda Rudolph. Women have been involved in Girl Scouts at one point, or are involved in Girl Scouts, and were troop leaders. Gergens has over 35 years of experience in the California education system. She has earned a master's in curriculum and instruction from CSU Long Beach and an early education credential from UCLA and a doctorate from USC in educational leadership. She has a vast knowledge and experience in mentoring and leadership at every level of education. Dr. Gergens is a Girl Scout leader for 2 different troops and advisor for the Future Teacher Club at Golden West College. Now on to Dr. Gupta. Dr. Gupta is a globally recognized expert with more than 25 years of experience in gender, cultural competency, diversity, equity, inclusion, race and ethnicity, and unconscious bias. Dr. Gupta is a trusted advisor to C-level executives, helping them create a more inclusive, equitable, and productive work environment. Dr. Gupta is an executive coach for women in senior leadership, and she is also a Girl Scout troop leader. She has written a number of children, and she received her doctorate from UCLA. Mrs. Rudolph has held HR leadership roles in technology, manufacturing, and life sciences industries. A creative and collaborative leader, she is passionate about fostering a culture based on organizations that empower and support employees. Mrs. Rudolph also volunteers as a coach and a mentor for youth employment services and a nonprofit dedicated to assisting teens and young adults with interviewing and job search skills. She also volunteers with the Orange County chapter of CHADD, Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and supporting parents of those affected by ADHD. And with that, let's continue on to our speakers, to our questions for the speakers. I'm going to direct the first question to you as, like I just said, you have a background in child development. How do you establish self-esteem and self-confidence in young girls?
First, Maya, we start off with basically when we're born, right? Our parents give us the feedback immediately with the tone of their voice, the encouragement they provide, the love and support. And then as we get older, we go through elementary school where our teachers then give us a little feedback, grandparents feed into that, our friends. When we hit middle school, that's mostly friendships that we thrive and derive our self-esteem from. And fortunately and unfortunately, because if you surround yourself around positive young women that are involved and encouraging, then you have that that outlook in life as well. Consequently, if we don't, right, we will not feel good about ourselves. So Most of the theorists that I teach my students at the college and high school level have to do with building self-esteem as far as who you surround yourself with, right? Who you are is who your friends are. And so, equally as important as how you feel about yourself is how your friends feel about themselves. And then that plays into how we develop then as adults.
Thank you very much. So I'll now move on to the questions for the rest of the panel. Mrs. Rudolph, let's start with you. What advice would you give to young women struggling with self-esteem issues? And then we'll move on from there with the other speakers.
Well, thank you for that question. Very thoughtful. I would, some of the things you mentioned, Maya, that you do are wonderful tools to help boost self-esteem. And that's not just necessarily for young girls. I mean, affirmations when you're struggling to tell yourself, I can do this, I am strong, I am capable. Those self-affirmations are incredibly important. There are times that honestly journaling your emotions at the time helps to, I don't know, reframe that and to put that in perspective. Because sometimes when you put it on paper or you put it out there about you're afraid of this and that and the other and struggling with self-esteem, you step back and look at that and realize that no, I can do this. That's not really going to be an obstacle for me. And I can't stress enough what, Dr. Gervin said, you surround yourself with the right people, really take stock of who you spend your time with and how you spend your time. That is tremendously helpful in boosting self-esteem.
Thank you. Dr. Gupta, can we move on to you for the same question?
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with both Mrs. Rudolph and Dr. Gergens. You really want to be with people who care about you and who support you, people who love all of you, not people who are trying to put you down and criticize you constantly, etc. And then I would also say the journaling, absolutely. I've journaled since I was 14. I think it's really helped me to understand who I am as a person. That's one place where you can be completely open and honest and say, put everything down on paper, and it really gives you a different perspective. I would say that you also try something that scares you or that you think that you cannot do. Pick something small, talk to a trusted friend and tell them what you're trying to do, ask them for their support, and then take one small step at a time. So, for example, if you're afraid of public speaking, and that is something, a skill that everyone needs to develop. If you're scared of public speaking, start small. Write out a paragraph, record yourself on your phone, and then watch it and really look at where your eyes going. Can you hear yourself? How do you sound? Are you saying a lot, or are you able to just speak, clearly, etc.? Do you look confident? And then you watch yourself and you re-record yourself and re-record yourself. So basically, you practice, practice, practice. That's how you start developing a skill that you feel that you scares you, and everything. So, but as you're growing up, I can't stress enough, as the other two speakers have said, it's so important who you surround yourself with. If you're around negative people, if you're on social media where you're looking at videos where, people are looking perfect, et cetera, none of us look that way. That's all made up. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind and stay off of social media as much as you can, but really surround yourself with people who build you up.
Thank you. Dr. Gergens, would you have anything to add for that question?
I did. I wanted to kind of jump on what Dr. Gupta said about the small steps. There's a technique that I taught my children when they were younger that seems to help them as they go through life. And one is it's goal setting. So every year we kind of set goals for them. The first is, something cognitively. So what class do you want to focus on in what aspect? Maybe it's note taking. Maybe last year they didn't do as well in history in their tests. So what can we do to increase that? Maybe it's making Quizlets every week, right? Start with something small, just like Dr. Gupta said, and then you build out from there. I look at, 5 different goals. So it's the emotional goal, The journaling is a fabulous component to that. You grow so much and learn so much about yourself, as Mrs. Rudolph said. The second one is a physical goal. So maybe you want to try something new, right? Maya, you shared you tried band. There's a lot of students that don't try things until they're later, even in college. Maybe you want to take piano, or maybe you want to learn to take a dance class, right? How to creative write. So set the little steps. The teachers will guide you if it's a class. If it's something that you're going to do on your own, then you can research it and go through the steps, small steps. The journaling, believe it or not, is not just learning about yourself, but there are things you don't tell people, but you might write it down, right? And so make sure you go back and read that journal, because you have growth year to year, you have growth month to month. And then reviewing those goals yearly, you can build on that and build your skill set, again, building your self-esteem. Super huge. Yeah, definitely.
That's really good. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Dr. Gupta, let's start with you. What can be done to develop self-confidence? Sorry. What can be done to develop self-confidence and high self-esteem and help develop leadership skills when entering the workforce?
Okay, that's a great question. The workplace has really been changing, and your generation has started the Gen Z has started entering the workforce. What's really important to remember about your generation is that everyone talks about the boomers and how they changed the world and the workplace and everything that they touched because of their huge size. Gen Z is actually bigger than the boomers, and you guys are going to have even more impact on the working environment. Having said that, the workplace still has a glass ceiling for women. And this will become more obvious as you start to reach the upper levels of leadership later on in your career. As you start, you've got to be really strategic, and you have to not be scared of failing. Before you go on your first interview at work, research the company, know the salary ranges in your field, and ask for the higher range. Don't settle for the lower range. Ask for the higher range. They may not give it to you, but what's the harm in asking for it? If you come in at a lower range, if you accept that lower range, you're going to take that much longer to advance to the higher range. Women still earn 82 cents to the dollar that men earn. And to put that into real numbers for you, millennial women, which is a generation in front of you, will earn $1 million less than millennial men will earn in their lifetime. That's a lot of money. So know your worth. Second, believe in yourself and your ability. Women don't believe strongly enough in themselves. They fall into what we call the expert syndrome, where they feel that they have to know everything about something before they try it. Men don't do that. Men they know 50%, 60%, sometimes even lower. They will take that risk and they will say, I'll learn on the job, because they have that confidence in themselves. They're not victims of the expert syndrome. We have to stop doing that to ourselves. The other thing that I would recommend very strongly is getting mentors. Not one, not two, but several mentors, different parts of your life. They don't have to be all in the same field that you're in. They can be from different things that you enjoy doing, but people that you trust, who believe in you and want the absolute best for you. You, I know, Maya, have several mentors in different areas and everything. I know Sheila is one of your mentors and she's on the call today. She's not in your field, but she does something that you enjoy, and she is someone you can talk to and trust their advice. So you have to keep doing things that stretch you. And like Dr. Gergens was saying, try it. Try doing different things. And don't be afraid of failing. Because when you're afraid of failing, you don't even take that first step and you miss out on so many opportunities. I mean, think about what you were sharing in your intro about how you feel that when you started actually stretching yourself and taking on these challenges, you rose to that challenge. So those are a few tips that I would start with.
Thank you very much. Those are all very, very good tips. Mrs. Rudolph, can we move on to you for the same question?
Sure. Well, I want to start by saying what she said. I have more to say. No, everything Dr. Gupta said is very much, very much critical advice and tips I would give to anyone. I mean, male or female, but we're talking about young women who have a particular veil, I want to say, of fear, of a little bit of timidness, et cetera. So I can say, first of all, let's talk about mentors. Absolutely. But here's where you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to ask someone to mentor you sometimes. Not all organizations provide a structured mentorship program. And I'm talking about corporate America here. This is the context I'm coming from. So ask someone. And again, if for instance, I'm in HR, so I mean, I could be a mentor to somebody in a completely different field or department. And that, again, whatever perspective that person brings is valuable. In addition, I would say when it comes to the job search, Dr. Gupta said, and it's very true, there's studies that also confirm this. Men will look at a job posting and there'll be like 5 or 6 things. You must have experience in this and a degree in that, and et cetera, et cetera. They will have 2 of those and think, yeah, I can rock this. Whereas a lot of women just, oh, well, no, I don't check all the boxes. Let me be clear, as someone who's recruited people for years, nobody checks all the boxes. No one. But people still get hired, right? So it is how you, obviously you need to check some of the boxes, but how you put yourself out there, present yourself, absolutely understand the company, their field, their competitors, what their goals, their values. That's huge. Talk about their values when it comes to job interviews, how you align with those values. So that's really, really important. And truly be curious when you're in whatever organization, whether you're a school or you're in a job. Be curious. Find out what other people are doing and other departments are doing. And that, again, can grow your relationships, probably maybe open new doors for mentorships, but then also it helps to gain other experience. I mean, there are many people that have moved, laterally, I guess, in the organization from like a technical field into something like project management because they were curious, because they offered to help, because they made, they built relationships with other people. So that many things that work in an organization are about relationships. So I would definitely give that advice to young women entering the workforce, to build relationships with your peers, leadership, in your department, other departments. Be that person that gets noticed.
I'd like to add something, if you don't mind, Maya.
Yep.
I think the other thing that I would recommend is what Mrs. Rudolph was saying, was keep building your skills. Read, read, read. I am always reading something. There's always a stack of books on my desk or my nightstand that I am reading. Ask your mentors. You've got several of them on this call. Ask your mentors what they're reading. Take a look at what famous leaders are reading. There's always book lists out there as to what they're reading. Read in your field, read outside of your field. Take any training that your company offers or that you see in any organization that you're there. Try and take that training. Ask for training outside of the organization. If you find some training that is outside the organization and you think that you would benefit from it, ask them. The most they're going to say is, no, we can't fund that training, but at least ask them. You have to just keep learning. That is something that a lot of people don't realize that they need to do. You want to always be working for your next level. You want to succeed in your current level, but you always want to be looking forward to your next level. Dress for your next level, learn for your next level, act like you're at the next level. Ask for, and I think Mrs. Rudolph would agree, as far as like feedback is concerned, a lot of women are scared about feedback. Don't be scared about feedback. Don't take it personally. Understand that it is something you need to grow and grow effectively. So ask when you're working with your manager and you say, how am I doing on this project? Are you seeing anything that I could do differently where you think I might be more effective? Are there any skills I need to learn? Ask for that feedback. What do you think, Mrs. Rudolph?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, asking for feedback. And again, not every organization is really good at that. Not every manager is really good at that. So, but one thing that I have noticed that Gen Z particularly wants feedback. I mean, years ago, if you got, some your performance review, your feedback was some boxes checked on a piece of paper with some signatures and not very much in the way of conversation. Well, that's changed. And a lot of companies are realizing that's not the way to grow and develop talent and the way that employees are going to be engaged and motivated. So if the feedback isn't coming, ask. I mean, in a reasonable amount of time, right? Not on a daily or weekly basis, but it's when there's, a good manager will have a one-on-one meeting with their team, individual, and that's a good opportunity to ask for that feedback.
Thank you. Dr. Gergens, I believe you're the last one who has yet to respond to that question. So whatever
I
you have to add.
concur with all the other ladies, exactly what they said. The only thing I'd like to add is that sometimes when we're younger, in the 11 to 17, even 21 range, we don't know what we want to do yet. And it's okay. Let's work then on our what we call soft skills and hard skills. So, what I would say is learn to write a resume. Start with an entry level job that may help you get the job you eventually want at the end. And what I mean by that is if you want to be a manager at McDonald's, then you need to start with food service, right? If you want, and then there are certificates you can get even as a 15-year-old that will help you prepare for that. They have something called food service prep certificate. They have blood pathogens so that if you cut yourself, you know the procedure, right, to do that. Keeping the kitchen clean, and knowing the tools you use. Those kinds of training and certifications are important if you're going to work up that level. If you want to be a teacher, babysitting is the very first skill. So you need your CPR, your first aid. You need to have, they have babysitting certification through your county or your cities. And you can get that quickly and then go ahead and make a flyer and work your neighborhood first, or family. Start with your nieces, cousins, younger siblings, and work through that route. If you want to be a veterinarian, by all means, walk dogs, right? Start to do a pet care service. So even though we're 11, 12, 13 years old, we can contribute, we can learn, we can grow, and those skill sets will then build to your, I call it big girl job later, right? Super important. So don't discount the little babysitting job. Don't discount the lemonade stand. Those are important skills that you can learn and build on so that later on you might be the best salesman in the world based on your lemonade stand and what you learned in your neighborhood. So take that opportunity, put yourself out there, as the ladies have mentioned, and really grow yourself. Grow yourself. Working with other people is super important, like they mentioned as well, building your community. The one thing I will tell you about mentoring, that was what my dissertation was on 20 some years ago, that is that you may not always find a woman mentor to help you, especially in the STEM fields, or it may be a situation where you don't have access to another strong mom, or mother figure. So reach out and you can learn something from your fellow gentlemen as well. But know that down the line, hopefully you will mentor another gal and bring them up as well, as it's so important to you only reach your goal by working with other people, right? Bring yourself up, bring others up as well.
Yeah, and just on a side note, Dr. Gergens, you mentioned someone starting out at McDonald's flipping burgers. I think we have someone very famous running for the president of the United States. Started out flipping burgers. So
I was
talk
just
about
going to
building
say that.
skills, right?
I was just going to say that. I mean, don't ever be ashamed. I mean, young ladies, with, if you have a job at, McDonald's or Starbucks or In-N-Out, don't ever be ashamed of that. But honestly, many of those companies, I mean, in the corporate world, they have excellent training programs on basic skills like customer service and communication. And that is experience. Any job gives you experience. You learn something from every job you have, no matter how you may view it or how entry level it may be. You take away something from everything.
Absolutely agree. Think about the skills you learned in Scouts, Girl Scouts, and in BSA. Selling cookies.
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, cookie sales, and they kind of sometimes people, don't think of them as actually skill building. But think about it. You're standing out there, you've got people approaching you, you've got to engage with the customer, you've got to make change, answer questions. I remember being out there, as all three of us have been Girl Scout troop leaders. We're out there with our troops selling cookies. People are asking you guys questions. What do you do with this money? How much money are you going to earn? They're asking you what level you're at. You've got to engage with them. All of these things create skills, and you're building upon them without even realizing. And what Mrs. Rudolph said was, never be ashamed of any place you have worked, any skill you have, developed. It is all building towards a greater goal. So always take pride in anything that you do. And one thing I know I always talk about with my kids is, whatever you're going to do it the best way that you possibly can do it. You don't have to get an A, but as long as you've worked hard and you've done your best, then you're successful. So always just be proud of yourself and what you are able to achieve, but always strive to do your best. Don't ever settle for second best in yourself. You are worth it. That's one thing that you have to really always tell yourself, is that I'm worth it. I am worth making the best possible effort that I can make in this area, whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're leading a summer troop at a summer camp, whatever it is, like Dr. Gurdon said, learn those skills about writing a resume, learn what is an effective interview, practice with people. My assistant practiced with me. I helped her pick out outfits for interviews, and she practiced with me on how to answer questions. So do that. And then one other tip that I would give you is, I get this happening to me periodically, where someone will introduce someone saying, can she interview you for like 20 minutes or something like that? And just understand what you do in your field, if they're interested in my field. And that is something you can also do. You reach through your network, through your parents and your parents' friends. If there's a field you're interested in, and say, can you introduce me to so-and-so, and can, talk to them and say, can I talk to you for 15 or 20 minutes? There's very few people who will say no. And if they're saying no, then they're really not interested in your growth. But that's also a great way of finding a mentor, is, I just want to understand what it is that you do, because I'm interested in this field. Ask them questions, thank them for their time. Don't just thank them on the phone or a Zoom call after you've done it. Send them an email, or better yet, send them a handwritten thank you note for their time. That is something that so many people forget to do, and that will make you stand out. But if you reach out to people like that in your field, or things you might be interested in doing, they can turn into lifelong mentors for you. And most people are willing to do that.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question, Mrs. Rudolph, why don't we start with you? How do you continue to stay motivated and overcome when facing setbacks or challenges?
Well, that is a great question, considering the week I had at work. Couldn't wait for Friday. Honestly, to me, this is what works for me, to take a break. Take yourself out of the situation, even just for 5 minutes. And that could be you kind of physically leave the building, walk around the block a little bit, come back, you physically go into another room, you do something, but take a break from the situation you're in at the moment, if as best you can, to just regroup. Some of it is it helps to normalize your emotions, I want to say, calm yourself down a bit, a couple of deep breaths. And then also, when you're physically away, mentally away, you can reframe that situation. I mean, and let me give you an example. I'm in a situation where an employee is complaining about another employee, and they're harassing me, and they're mean, and they're this and they're that. I mean, I was very patient listening for a long time, but the sort of the tone and everything else was getting to be a bit much for me. And at some point, I just, again, I said, well, let's stop and reframe the situation. The minute we, turn around the situation, put into a different context, she really did look at this and think, well, maybe this isn't as serious as I'm making it to be, and maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. It brings a little bit of self-awareness to that. But for what the best advice I can give to anyone is do what works for you. If you know that literally is you just need to step outside, take a deep breath or two, come back into the situation, that can be extremely powerful. And this is also a time to lean on your mentor. If you were really struggling with something and this project is just nothing is going well and everything is happening and things are delayed and it's not your fault, that's a time to reach out to your mentor and say, okay, help me understand what, maybe I'm missing something. What can I do differently? That is also the value of a mentor. Even if they're not in the field and they don't, know specifically what that job is or what that task is or that project is, a different perspective can be very, very helpful.
Thank you. Dr. Gergens, should we move on to you for the same question?
I think she did a beautiful job of highlighting everything. I remember leaning on my mentor so much in the beginning, asking questions. A new faculty advisor meeting was coming up. Okay, what is the agenda? What do I expect? What do I need to know walking in? How should I dress? Those kinds of things. As you get older and more experienced, you take cues from others, and you can learn from that. But I liked what Mrs. Randolph said about put yourself in their shoes. I do a game with my students called role play. I want you to take their perspective and then this student take the other perspective, and they learn a lot about what that experience means, the interplay, and they learn not to judge others based on their experiences and learn to adjust and accommodate to others' needs a little more. You guys do what we call the, small groups, right, at school. When you don't have individual work you do small groups. You learn so much from negotiating and talking, communicating, learning to give and to take. Each one of you seems to, maybe in math, is stronger than the other. So maybe that in that class, you will assert leadership more than another person in that role. So that negotiation that goes on, that communication that goes on is so important when you're looking at dealing with conflict and conflict management. Absolutely. And then because each person is different, my response to a student will be different. If I know a student has had maybe an abusive situation, I don't talk as pointedly to them. I might take them outside, smaller hushed tones, give them a chance to refresh, take a walk, and go out and think about something or journal it, like Ms. Rudolph always said to do. And then they can come back to me, or I'll say, are you ready to talk? Is this a good time? Because some people are not prepared to talk about something when their emotions are so jarbled and trying to work it through. And I know Ms. Rudolph in HR probably uses all these techniques, right, to bring people down to a more calm state so that we can talk about things and discuss things in a manner that everyone can take part and feel comfortable in. So basically, I think that role play, putting yourself in other shoes, is a huge technique that I use in my classroom and in my field. That would be beneficial, I think, for people to look at that aspect. Definitely.
Thank you. Dr. Gupta, on to you for the answering that question.
So I would agree with everything that Dr. Gergens and Mrs. Rudolph said. In the working environment, I have found that the most common reason that people bring me into a company is because of communication issues. And putting yourself in other people's shoes, et cetera, that is so important because you'll see a completely different perspective. So I completely agree with both of what they said. I would add, on a personal level, you want to find something that resonates with you. So ever since I was 14, the Serenity Prayer has resonated with me. And that is something I actually embroidered. And I keep it in my office. And I will find, whenever I'm feeling, cannot believe this is happening, what is going on, I will look at that and it immediately calms me down. I take a deep breath and I figure out, okay, there's nothing that I can't overcome. So find something like that for you. I also have a picture of my family. I look at that picture and I see the reason that I do everything that I do is right there in front of me. So find some personal things that will also help you just immediately resonate, taking that deep breath, bringing it down. The mentors is really, really important. What Dr. Gergens and Mrs. Rudolph were saying about lean on your mentors, talk to them and say, this is going on. What can I do about it? The other group that I would also lean on is having a small group of very close friends, people who you really, really trust. Lean on them. Lean on your family. If you've got the support of your family, lean on your family. I also do things like think about other obstacles that I have faced in my life and how have I overcome those obstacles? What did I learn from them? One tip I would also add is don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't sit there and just wallow. You can wallow, but do it for a limited amount of time. Say, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to wallow. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to feel sorry for myself and then move forward. There is always someone, no matter what you are facing, there is always someone who is facing more problems than you are. I distinctly remember a moment at UCLA when I was in graduate school and I was walking onto campus and I was facing something really, really tough. And as I was walking onto campus, and this is, a sign that was sent to me, I saw someone in a wheelchair struggling to cross the street. And I thought, right there is someone who is having a harder time than you are. So that's why wallowing in self-pity, feeling sorry for yourself, if you've got to do it for a certain amount of time, move on. So start developing these skills within yourself of how to overcome adversity. Journaling is a great way. If you're facing this, we talked about journaling earlier. If you're facing a situation like that, pull out your journal, pour everything into your journal, get it out. You will immediately start to feel better. And then as you have it out of your system and you're looking at it, you can sit there and say, okay, I actually can see a way out of this. So there's a lot of different things that we've talked about to lean on and to use as tools. So if I just want to sum all of them up, um, mentors, lean on your mentors, lean on a close circle of trusted friends who really know you and want the best for you. Lean on something that it means is particularly meaningful to you. For me, the Serenity Prayer, picture of my family, and that settles me down. Think about the fact that there's always someone out there who has it harder than you. And when you have these setbacks, look at all of that stuff and then journal, like we talked about several times, and then really see that as a way to overcome what you are. There's no one who does not have obstacles in their life. And that's one of the reasons why, so many studies have shown that social media just shows all the perfect things in someone's life. Every single person, I will put money on it, on this call has obstacles they're facing in their life. Okay.
If I can just add, and that's something I really wanted to highlight what you said, Dr. Gupta, is allow yourself time to process your emotion. Many times people will say, oh, shake it off, shake it up. No, that's not realistic. You've had a setback, you're disappointed, you're angry, you're sad, you're something. There's some emotion that you are dealing with. Acknowledge it. Work through it. I mean, understand, okay, I am sad because of this. I'm disappointed because of this. And then, again, whatever self-care, and I look at those things that you mentioned, Dr. Gupta, self-care things. And those are things, I mean, it's maybe self-mental health care, I suppose, but you're looking at the Serenity Prayer, you're looking at pictures of your family. For me, it's kind of walking out of the situation, getting out in fresh air. Whatever self-care tool works for you in the moment is what is going to be the best opportunity for you to start calming yourself, start refocusing and get back at it. And then honestly, many times after you've had the setback and then you go back into this and then you're able to, complete the project or whatever, you look back on that and you think that wasn't so bad. At the time, it's the end of the world, but you look back on it and it wasn't so bad.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of those responses.
Maya, one other thing real quick, really good chocolate always helps.
Oh,
Without question. Restorative powers in chocolate, without question.
Moving on to our last question for this panel. So let's start with Dr. Gergens for this one. What is one piece of advice you wish you could have told your younger self?
Wow. That's a tough one. There's a lot of, I don't ever look back with regret. Okay. I think that things happen for a reason. I think there's a purpose. Um, but I think if I could have gone back, I think I would have told my younger self that mistakes and failures are a part of learning and it makes you stronger. I didn't really learn that until I was in graduate school. And it's funny, I think Dr. Gupta touched on this earlier. Every little bit of training, every little bit of experience that you have builds on the other, and none of it should be discounted. You use it, you use that information to either train or teach yourself or someone else later on. I'm trying to think of an example, but my mom and dad owned a preschool, and I started off as a teacher's aide, and I did not want to be a teacher at all. I babysat younger cousins, took care of my younger brother. I think I was just wanting to do something completely different. And later on in college, I needed one more class, and that class was tutoring younger students. And I got so much great feedback from my professors that I changed my career path based on the fact that I decided it wasn't just something I was good at or had a passion for, but it was something that would help others. And I had to think that it wasn't just about me, right? And I had met Mr. G then, my husband now, and he and I wanted to start a family and get going and getting married and so on. And so I had to look at career choices, and really being a teacher and being a professor gave me so much opportunity to help others learn and grow. But it also provided me opportunity to learn and grow in a field that I would then be a better mom. I would eventually be a better grandma, right? I'd be a better employee and a better community member, giving back to my community. I didn't know back then that I was going to be a Girl Scout leader and mentor a ton of girls, but Maya, as I look back, I think to myself, okay, 21 girls through the silver award is pretty good. After I finish with my daughter, it'll be 25 girls through the gold. That's pretty good. It's something I am very proud of. It's something I look back on very fondly. And I just really relish in that opportunity and feel very fulfilled with that. So again, if I didn't take that opportunity, I would have never known, right? I would have never known. So yeah, every little bit that we have, every little experience we have makes us stronger and builds and grows upon that when we become an adult, then to help others as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mrs. Rudolph, did you have something to add for that question?
Oh, I was trying to do the clapping hands.
Oh, I'm sorry.
20 girls in the silver award. Oh my gosh. I just remember when my oldest child's troop was going through that. It's a lot of work.
But do you have one bit of advice that
I
you can share?
do. My younger self. I think I would tell my younger self a lot of things. But if I could just pick out a couple, I would tell my younger self to take a risk, to put myself out there more than I did, particularly in high school. And because I really did feel I'm not one of the popular girls kind of syndrome. And honestly, when I look back on that, I think, well, how silly is that? Because I could have done so much more with myself. So I would say, if I could go back, I would say take a risk, and I would put myself out there to just do different things, to have learning opportunities, to connect with different kinds of people. And I think that would definitely have made for a different experience for me throughout those years. But I started later in my life than I think, as I look back, and I would have wanted to. Other things I would say is enjoy now. Enjoy now. Make the most of what's happening in your life now. look at all the good things because I tend to be planning ahead and what's going to happen and enjoy now. And, even if there's a few bumps in the road, it's what doesn't, all of it makes you stronger. It's all a learning opportunity. But really look back, be in the present, and enjoy now. That's what I would say.
Thank you. That's very good advice. Dr. Gupta, would you like to answer the last question for what's one bit of advice?
So I agree with both Dr. Gergens and Mrs. Rudolph. I would also add to my younger self, I would say be bold, color outside the lines. Don't listen to anybody, and I mean anybody who tells you there are limits on what you can achieve. I remember getting my master's degree and going out and celebrating with friends. We had gone out for dinner and for dancing, and people brought other friends of theirs. And there was a guy there who came up to me and was chatting with me. He said, "So what are you going to do now?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to start my PhD in the fall." And he said, "Oh, do you really want to do that?" Now, keep in mind, this guy doesn't know me at all. He's just meeting me for the first time. And I said, "Well, why wouldn't I?" And he said, "You're going to educate yourself out of the marriage market." Said, if you get a PhD, you can really only marry an MD or another PhD. And I looked at him and I said, any man who's afraid of 3 letters after my name is not anyone I would be interested in. He was putting limits. He was putting limits on me. A total stranger felt the right to come up to me and put limits on what I should try and achieve. And I always keep that example in the back of my mind. I don't let anyone put limits on me. You have to do anything and everything you want to do. Follow your passion. If there's something you really want to do, I wanted to be a historian. And it was something that I was passionate about. I started pre-med because that's what my parents wanted. But I realized that's not what I wanted. So I switched and I went the history route. And I loved what I did. And I expanded myself so much within that into different fields. Then, I thought, I need to be open to new possibilities. So that's another key point. You want to always be open to new possibilities. When I finished my doctorate, consulting firms came to UCLA and they recruited 2 of us. So I worked for a global consulting, McKinsey, a global consulting firm for 2 years. That led me down a different path. Now I've combined both that business experience and my passion, and I work with companies to improve their working environment. So you never know what the path you're on, where that's going to lead you. But if I hadn't been willing to take a chance, if I hadn't followed my passion, if I definitely had listened to, this guy and limited myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. With a family I love, in a job I love, and doing something that really motivates me where I feel like I can make a difference. So I would tell my younger self, be bold, follow your passion, do what is you want to do. If there are people who are limiting you, I was told by a professor at UCLA that I was taking the space of a man, that I should go home, get married, and have kids. Yeah, exactly, Bridget. And I was in graduate school, and he was saying, I'm taking the space of a man. Okay, so what? If you listen to people like that, if you allow people like that to put limits on what you can achieve, you're not going to fulfill your highest potential, whatever that is. So really don't be around people. And it goes back to something that Dr. Gergen said in the very beginning of our talk, was surround yourself with people who believe in you, people who uplift you. So if we go back kind of full circle to where we started, it's not only be bold, it's not only coloring outside the lines, it's not only following your passion, but surrounding yourself by people who support you, who care about you, who believe in you. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for our absolute incredible adult panel for sharing your story with us. You truly are such like inspiring women. I'm so happy to be here to hear your story, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. I would now like to give everyone the chance to take a 15-minute break to use the restroom, get a snack or drink of water, or even just take a moment to reflect and compile a potential list of questions you have for the panelists. Because after the break, we will have the youth panel, and then after the youth panel, we will be providing everyone with an opportunity to ask questions to all of the panelists. So make sure to have some questions prepared. I will see you all shortly. So 15 minutes is 10:15. So everyone please be back by 10:15. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone. Hello. Hoping you're all back and had a nice 15-minute break. We will now be transitioning to our second panel of the day, which is our Leading by Example, Peers Inspiring Peers panel. And moderating and introducing our panelists is our very own Dr. Gupta, who you've just heard just speaking before. So thank you and take it away.
Thank you, Maya. It is truly my pleasure today to introduce you to three extraordinary young women. Maya Anjali Bodla. Ms. Bodla graduated from Fountain Valley High School with honors seal of Biliteracy, Artistic Literacy Cord, and Performing Arts Cord. Maya is an Eagle Scout. She has studied Kathak, which is a classical Indian dance, has a black belt in Shotokan karate, plays the alto sax. She represented Fountain Valley High School at Boys and Girls State in 2023, the first year that girls were admitted to this prestigious program. She is also the co-author of two books, Maya and Rajan's Rainbow of Friends and Maya and Rajan Go to North India, children's books focusing on diversity and inclusion from a child's perspective and on being bicultural. Our second panelist is Katarina Roshka, and please excuse me if I mispronounce your name. Kat is the editor-in-chief and founder of the youth-led online publication Tangent Zine. Formed in response to a lack of publications at her high school, Tangent Zine has been able to professionally report on major sports leagues like the MLB, the NBA, NWSL, MSL, and USWNT. Let me repeat that. USWNT. Tangent has featured such luminaries as Greta Gerwig, Kid Cudi, Megan, sorry, my glasses are fogging up, Rapinoe, Matthew Broderick, Jesse Eisenberg, Billy Crystal, and Robert De Niro. Kat hopes to revive journalism and make it more accessible by encouraging Gen Z to go on a tangent. Love that. About the things that they love most. When she's not working, like she's running out of time, Kat enjoys punching her troubles away through boxing, watching pretentious art house films, and DIY everything she can. Kat will be attending Northwestern University in the fall, majoring in journalism and political science and minoring in film on a pre-law track. Wow, that's really impressive, Kat. Our third panelist is Anna Albrummalala. And Anna, please correct me when you start speaking. Please give us the correct pronunciation of your name. Anna is an incoming college freshman. She's a dedicated youth advocacy student with a passion for empowering young people and driving social change. Through internships with local nonprofits and leadership roles in student organizations, Anne has honed her skills in policy analysis, program development, and grassroots activism. In addition to these three pursuits, during her free time, Anne loves to spend time with her family and friends, writing poetry, ceramics, and spending time outdoors. So thank you for being with us today. I'd like to go ahead and get started on the questions. Anne, I'd like to start with you for our first question. Can you share a specific challenge you have faced as a young leader and how you overcame it?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I actually wasn't born in the United States. I was an immigrant. So I was learning English at the very age of 6. That language barrier for me was super difficult and probably like the biggest challenge I've ever gone through because it was so hard to try and communicate with people and like connect with peers and also like understand lessons in school. I was always really frustrated because I felt like I was really behind and it was really hard to express who I was and my voice fully with everybody else. But I committed myself to really practicing English all the time. I read a lot of books. That was like kind of my biggest thing growing up. I just loved reading. And conversations with my classmates and kind of getting to know more about the people around me, even though it was intimidating at first. And I found that like over time my skills improved a lot and with that my confidence had grown as well. And that led me to kind of like skipping a grade in school. And also it taught me a lot about resilience and how to push yourself through discomfort in order to achieve growth, which I've carried on to all the leadership roles I've taken up now and hopefully all the roles I will take up in the future as well.
Wow, that's a great experience, and thank you for sharing and really building upon. I'm thinking about the mornings panel and everything that we were talking about you did to overcome this challenge. Awesome. Maya Anjali, can you answer the same question? Can you share a specific challenge you faced as a young leader and how you overcame it?
Hi, yes. So I'm just thinking, I talked a decent amount about some of the challenges that I faced already with the program I was in, California Boys and Girls States, and with Scouts. But more recently, I think a specific challenge I faced was actually in band. So I joined, and because I wanted to try new things, and learning a new instrument was something that I really wanted to do, and I was encouraged to do it by my friends and my family. And so I kind of was throwing myself in there. I taught myself how to play this instrument in under a year. And because of the experiences that I had earlier with scouts and just leadership in general through that, I interviewed and got the role accepted as the section leader for the saxophones, right? And so for the next incoming year, I it was really challenging for me. I'll be quite honest because I faced a lot of I'll say flack from the other people in the section who believed they were they had more skills than me, I'll say, or they should have gotten the role. And so I had a lot of that. And then additionally, I was dealing with a lot of actually misogyny from a lot of the other people in my section. There was, I remember very specific people where I would say something and it would be really straightforward and it would be something that I knew that saying this correctly. So there was no doubt about that I didn't know what I was doing. But when I would tell this person, they wouldn't listen to me. And it was just a back and forth of, no, I'm not going to listen to you. There's no reason why I have to listen to you. Why are you talking about all this? Blah, 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 blah. And then it was just, I would go talk to somebody else and then they would repeat back essentially almost the exact same thing, except it was a man. And oh, wow, I see. That is completely what you should be doing. Oh, why didn't I think of that before? So, a completely different attitude change from when I said pretty much the exact same thing and just wasn't respected. And so for me, that was a really big challenge. And so what I really took from that was there are some challenges that are really quite difficult, and it's not going to be something that you can necessarily handle yourself all the time. Don't put all of that on yourself. That's kind of the main thing. I reached out and asked for help, even though I was worried about asking for help because I didn't want it to make me seem less competent or anything like that. But I realized that, asking for help is not a bad thing. And this is a situation where I needed, obviously, like some assistance, another perspective, and stuff like that. And so I did just that. I asked for help from the other adults, other section leaders, and got advice on how to deal with this particular person. And eventually it ended up working out. Um, not everything is perfect. I will say he still tended to have some he still made a few comments here and there, but generally it was much better because I tried to make him not make him understand. That's not the right word, but I tried to make it a better situation for both of us. So it wasn't just me having to keep telling him what to do and everything like that, and then him just not accepting it and going to someone else. So I tried to maybe get us more on equal footing where he could understand what more I was trying to say and it was respected. And so luckily I was able to get to that point, but that really was a quite a difficult experience for the entirety of my senior year with that. So, but that I think was a challenge for me.
So I will share with you, and I think maybe we can touch on this more in the Q&A with Dr. Gergens and also Mrs. Rudolph, is that kind of attitude still exists in the working environment. And so many times you'll be in a meeting and a woman will say something and someone will talk over her. And then a minute or two later or 5 minutes later, a man will repeat the exact same thing. And they'll say, wow, that's a great idea. And he gets credit for it. Now, I noticed that there's some young men on the call today. And one of the things that I will tell you is that this is where you also need to step in. If you are leading this meeting or you see this happening, you need to go back and say, oh, I think Maya was actually trying to say something. Maya, do you want to build on that, on your thought, or do you want to finish your thought so we can hear what she has to say? Or, hey, I think Maya started to say something about that idea. Maya, do you want to go ahead and finish your idea so that we can all hear what you wanted to say? Putting the attention back to what she was saying, her idea, or the fact that she was trying to say something and was interrupted. So this type of stuff still goes on in the working environment. It's not just in high school. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit in the Q&A section and get some tips on how you handled this. But this is where men step in as allies and try and diffuse the situation. But in order to do that, they also have to be aware of it. So the points that you're sharing are very, very important. Kat, if you want to go ahead and answer the same question, can you share a specific challenge you faced as a young leader and how you overcame it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. A specific challenge I faced as a young leader was, I think, facing adults who I looked to for guidance and who I thought would help guide me in my journey, and just being met with doubt and honestly some really harsh insults. I had this AP Lit teacher in senior year who gave me a really hard time when I tried to explain to him that I was invited to some of these conferences. I was reporting as press for this event, and I tried to work with him on scheduling and trying to like make up for late work. And I really wanted to be as accommodating as possible because these were really great opportunities that I was getting, and I didn't want to turn them down. And he gave me a really hard time. He belittled my magazine and called my writing like crap, terrible, without giving me a proper explanation when I asked for it. And I tried to be as patient as possible. In tandem with that, I had a guidance counselor while I was applying for my college apps. I showed him my list. I said these were the schools that I wanted to reach for, and he just told me straight up that there was no there was I shouldn't apply to these schools at all, that it wasn't worth it, that I wasn't going to get in, and that I wasn't a good enough applicant, and that I should just basically abandon all hope. And I think knowing that these were supposed to be people who were supposed to, mentor me, give me guidance, be this light that I could look to, it really hurt. And it hurt every single time that I had an interaction with these two people, these two adults. But one piece of advice that really helped me during this time was that you shouldn't take advice from people you don't look up to. A lot of people have a lot of things to say, and I think that listening to the teachers, the mentors that do believe in you, that do support you, who give constructive criticism without tearing you down, those are the people that are really going to help you. And I think this also taught me to learn how to roll with the punches and how to take things as they come and just, drown out all the naysayers.
I would agree with that. And that goes back to what we were talking about this morning about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up. And really, I think I would add to that, I think as Dr. Gergens would agree, is that you really want to surround yourself with mentors who believe in you. That's who you don't want. If someone doesn't believe in you like that, you need to immediately step back from them and find a different mentor. Um, I believe Michelle Obama in her memoir also shared a similar story to what you're saying about being discouraged to applying for colleges. And I'm glad that you didn't listen to that and you applied and hopefully you got in exactly where you wanted to go. Um, Maya, I'm going to start with you for the next question. Has your self-confidence evolved since you started taking on more leadership roles? And if yes, how can you share how that evolved? And if no, what were some of the roadblocks that you faced?
So I think I shared a lot about this in my opening comments already. Absolutely, my self-confidence has evolved from taking on more leadership roles, because I stated this, but I used to not be as confident as I am now. Talking in front of people was extremely hard for me. Again, I love talking to people, but being able to do it like this, or put myself out there for different opportunities and experiences, was something that was difficult for me to do. But it wasn't until I took that first step of just realizing there was a mental barrier for me. And that was that you're not good enough to do this. You shouldn't do this. But really, once I got past that barrier, everything just opened up for me. And I was able, and I wasn't, it wasn't even just like I was hearing from other people, oh, you are able to do this. I was able to hear and say to myself that you were able to do this and you were able to keep doing all these things. So, I mean, right, I think I've shared all like my examples and everything, but yes, absolutely 100% my self-confidence has completely evolved because of taking leadership roles and putting myself out there and taking that first step. And you are muted.
Thank you. And can you share how your self-confidence has evolved since you started taking on more leadership roles?
Yeah, so I think my self-confidence has definitely evolved a lot since I've taken more like leadership roles. I feel like when I first started off like with all like the leadership roles and working with like new clubs and organizations, I felt like I had to prove myself in ways that other people didn't. But I feel like once I started, whether it was like school activities, policy work, advocating for education, or like presenting bills for in front of like the California Senate and Assembly, I started to really realize that my unique experiences were gave me like a really valuable perspective that a lot of other people don't necessarily have. Um, so yeah, I do think that each success I had helped me reinforce my belief in my abilities, and I really began to trust like my voice and decisions, and I began to learn that a lot of leadership isn't about knowing everything from the start, but rather learning it as you go on and growing from that.
Can you expand on that a little bit about leadership is not about knowing everything? Because I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I feel like for me, I didn't necessarily know everything. Like when I first started off, I didn't have an understanding of even like where to start or what resources to use or any of that. And I feel like as you start like pushing yourself and going into new things, you'll kind of start to learn and grow. I really don't think that it's important to kind of like know exactly where you're going with something, but rather kind of growing along the way and then finding yourself after. So I think leadership is more about like building on your experiences and meeting new people and also interacting with new people. And that's kind of what makes it so unique.
That's a great answer. And it completely ties back to what we were talking about this morning. Um, so I think that was, I appreciate the details you gave me. Our third question, and I will start with Kat on this question, is what strategies do you use to boost your self-esteem when you are facing new challenges? And if you want to also be very specific and maybe even share a couple of personal strategies that you use, I think that would be really helpful.
Um, I'm just gonna pause you right there, Dr. Gupta. Kat did not have a chance to answer the previous question
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I
unless she
got
didn't
to
have anything to
everybody.
say.
Kat, how has your self-confidence evolved since you started taking on more leadership roles?
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. I can actually combine these two questions because I think these two relate to each other directly. But my self-confidence has evolved in so many different ways, mainly in terms of public speaking. In middle school, I was terrified to do public speaking. I would try to avoid it as much as possible. But there was an instance in my sophomore year where I was in the yearbook club, and I was just informed by admin that since no one was taking over yearbook because it was a team full of seniors the previous year and they all graduated, no one was taking over yearbook and they were planning to dissolve it and just get rid of it. And I was like, wait, I'm a part of the yearbook team. Like I think I have some experience. I can help out. And they asked me, are you sure you want to take this responsibility on? And I think there was a moment of self-doubt where I was like, I don't know if I have enough experience. There's probably somewhere more qualified. I should probably just give it to someone else. But there was no one else, and I did have the most experience at that school. So I took a risk. I accepted the role of editor-in-chief, and I looked for a teacher and a moderator who would help me get the club back together. And I was the youngest editor-in-chief in my school's history. And I think that was such a huge risk. And I think what that taught me is that leadership is about trusting others, but above all, it's also about trusting yourself. And stepping up means offering yourself to others and trying to be a part of something bigger. So with that, I think that really boosted my self-esteem. It showed me that I am capable of taking on challenges, knowing that I've gone through so many. And that is a strategy I use to boost my self-esteem, remembering everything I faced beforehand, remembering all the people who've believed in me, and remembering the goals that I've set for the future and want to keep moving towards. Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit about how you set your goals?
Yeah, so I was actually discussing this with Anne last night because I'm currently at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. And I said, oh, it's so funny how last year I put TIFF on my vision board. And I was like, oh, it's never going to happen. And today I'm here. So something about, actually writing down your goals in a journal or like even making a vision board, something to look at every single day and just like remember that this is what you're working towards, remembering that your dreams are so much closer than you think. Having a physical manifestation of that is something that I find very helpful and very important.
So for anyone who's on the call who doesn't know about a vision board, could you talk about that a little bit and what it entails to create one? What do you have on it? So that someone else could take this tip and actually run with it.
Right. So I'm a very like visual person. I like words. I like things being put down on paper. So what I usually do is I either go in my notes app or I go in my journal, which I actually have right here because I was writing down this morning. And I'm like, these are all the things I want to accomplish short term, and these are all the things I want to accomplish long term. And I just started doing it past 2 years, but I found it so very effective. So I'm doing it again and again. But I have a short-term vision board, which is like things I want to accomplish like in a week or so. And like you don't even have for this little short-term vision board, you don't even have to like print out pictures and create like this whole collage. It's just a physical reminder of like what you need to get done. I need to finish this class, I need to talk to this professor, yada yada. And for my long-term goals, like the bigger things that I want to dream for, like TIFF, working at the NBA, I print out pictures of the life I want to live. I just literally go on Pinterest and I combine all the photos. And, it's a bit delusional, but I think delusion is a very powerful thing because, you just got to believe yourself, especially as a young woman. Faith in yourself is one of the most important things to have. But yeah.
I love that. And I would say that's not delusional. I would say that that's aspirational, is how I would frame it. Because if I heard you correctly, you said that you put TIFF on your vision board last year, and today that's where you are. So that's pretty aspirational. So thank you for the details in that. I think that that's definitely a tool that somebody could take away from here and work on to create it for themselves. Okay, so our third question is, and Maya, I'm going to start with you. What strategies do you use to boost your self-esteem when facing new challenges?
Okay, so for boosting my self-esteem, I actually do a little bit of similar for what Kat does, like with writing things down. Because for me, like words of affirmation, like me being able to say it to myself and then also having a visual reminder, like I have like everywhere I'm like looking up and I have like post-it notes and all of these little things everywhere of me just saying, okay, this is not just what you're going to do, but this is what you can do, and this is what you're going to do, and whatnot. And so that's that's what I do just in general. Maybe not when I'm in like a certain situation, but when I am in something where I'm leading, I just honestly, I really just keep thinking over and over to myself. I'm like, okay, you're in the middle of this, but you got to keep going, and this is just what you got to keep doing. You can't give up now. There's so much like more. So that's what I just keep repeating to myself. And then also, I find it's really important to have, we've been talking so much about mentors and having a good group of people to surround yourself with. I find that extremely helpful because when I have those people that I can just come to and be like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I'm feeling kind of down about this, I just talk to them and talk through my perspective and everything like that. And just even doing that just really helps me feel better about the situation. And I feel more capable if I'm able to just, verbally say it to another person, have them reply back to me. It's just I find that extremely helpful, and it just always it encourages me to keep going forward with whatever it is that I'm trying to do at that particular moment.
So these affirmations and things that you're talking about, do you have them in certain places? Are there certain ones that you particularly like?
So one of the ones that I was gonna end the conference on actually is the this one quote. It's "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That is one of my favorite quotes, and like I said, I will end the conference with that. That's the one that I have pretty much everywhere. I have it on my desk. I have it in my room. I have like a little notebook like on the side of my bed, and so I can just see that. I have all of that, and so in those places, that's really important. I use a note-taking app, and part of that at the very top banner of that app is I have that quote. So even while I'm working, I can just look up at that if I need to, and I need just a reminder of what it is that I'm striving for. So I just look up at that.
Okay, thank you. Um, Anne, would you like to answer this question? What strategies do you use to boost your self-esteem when facing new challenges?
Yeah, so also to add on to what Kat said, I completely agree with the vision board. I do the exact same thing. So like on my notes app, I also have like a list of things I want to accomplish like before this time next year, or just kind of like whenever like I have an idea of something I want to do or something I'm really excited about and looking forward to do. I'll put it in my notes app as well. And usually like it happens as well. And I feel like I just kind of put it into the world and I put it out there, which is really helpful for me as well, because it kind of gives me like a layout of like next steps and also what I want to accomplish and then motivation for how I'm going to get there. And also with that, like in my bathroom, I have like sticky notes of motivation. So like on my wall. So every morning when I wake up, like it's on my mirror. So I look at it as I'm like brushing my teeth or getting ready for school. It's just always there and they're like all different colors, which is always like really nice to see in the morning. But basically, like, I kind of just like remind myself of the challenges I've already become and look back at like what's helped me accomplish them and how much I've trusted my abilities when facing something new. And whatever like big challenge I find, I try to kind of like break it up into manageable steps and kind of go one piece at a time. So, yeah.
Awesome. Does anybody want to add anything else before I go on to the last question? No? Okay. So our last question, before we take open up our Q&A, is what one piece of advice, and it can be more than one if you have more than one, do you wish that you could have told your younger self or that you wish you had known when you were younger? And since I've got you right in front of me, maybe I'll start with you.
One piece of advice I feel like I would tell my younger self is like every time I felt lost or unsure, I feel like I want to tell myself that those are the moments I was growing up the most and also learning the most about who I was. I tell myself that it's totally okay to ask for help whenever I need it and not to be ashamed when I'm struggling and to kind of take things one step at a time rather than rushing and kind of going through everything at once and making everything a big jumble. And I'd also just kind of be really apparent about how like every challenge and every setback I face is just a chance to learn something new about myself. And I feel like as I've grown, I've gotten to see that more and more, and that like every situation where I'm put in like a hard struggle or something I've never gone through before, it kind of teaches me something new about who I am. Um, and also another piece of advice would be to stop comparing myself and to kind of trust the process and realize that all my struggles are going to shape me into someone who's stronger and more capable than I've realized at the time.
Very well said. Thank you. Kat, do you want to give your one piece of advice that you wish you could have told your younger self or that you had known when you were younger?
Yes, so I actually have two pieces of advice, just like Anne. So, number one, if it was easy, you'd be bored. And number two, the grass is greener where you water it. I think there were so many times when I was growing up where I was just like, why is it so hard? Like, why is my life so hard? And I think it ties into what you were saying earlier, Dr. Gupta, that's there's always someone experiencing something harder, and that everyone has their problems in life. And that I think the the road to where you want to go is not going to be smooth and it's not going to be easy. I mean, we watch all these movies, we enjoy all this media where all the main characters go through such insane struggles. And I think younger me didn't understand that these struggles, these things that you go through are what builds your character and what prepares you for the dream life that you want. And for number two, the grass is greener where you water it. I had so many times growing up where I was just looking at people's social media, looking at people's lives, thinking they were so much happier, thinking like, wow, she has this opportunity. Her parents work at this law firm, so she can get that internship. And I was just so riddled with like I was just in constant comparison and just thinking about how much of a disadvantage I was at. But I wish that younger me had the foresight to step back and realize, yeah, she's great, but I also have these skills, and if I keep growing it, then I can, you know, surpass anything that I was worried about. And that's just what I wish I could tell my younger self.
I love that quote. I actually wrote it down. The grass is greener wherever you water it, because that puts you completely in control of the opportunities you are going to create. So I wrote that down. I'm gonna put this up on a sticky note where I can see it because I just absolutely love it. Um, Maya, do you want to go ahead and answer this question?
Sure. I think I touched on a little of this before, but sorry, my screen had froze for a second. Um, don't be fearful and nervous about what could happen and just take that first step to move forward. Because, like I said, that mental barrier that you're facing, once you're able to get over that, it really just clears the road for you. It gives you the chance to do so many things. And when I was younger, if I had that chance and had been able to realize that I was the one that was holding myself back, I think I probably could have done a lot more things and just in general. And I'm not saying that I have any regrets or anything like that. I've done what I've done and I've learned from the experiences of the past. But really it's just taking that first step forward and being able to say to yourself that, you know, sure, this might be hard and sure, I might have a difficult time with it, but being able to take that first step, I think that's so important in getting rid of, or at least trying to minimize that mental barrier that you have. It's so incredibly important.
So I'd like to thank all three of you for sharing your experiences with us. If there's anything any one of you want to add, please let me know. Just unmute yourself and add it. No. Otherwise, I want to first thank you, all three of you, for being here to share your experiences with us today. And I just want to say on a personal note how absolutely extraordinary I think the three of you are. I'm so impressed with where you are in life at such a young age. I'm so impressed with what you have accomplished and the self-awareness that you have and what you have done to like think all of this through and where you have come out on the other side. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what you are going to do with your future. I am just blown away today with everything that you have shared and everything. So thank you very much for doing that, for sharing this with us. At this time, I'm going to give it back to Maya.
Okay, hello again. So now that you've heard, this is directed at the audience. Now that you've had a chance to hear from all these panels, we will now take the time to open the floor up to questions. So if any of you guys have a question for a specific panelist, please just put it in the chat and introduce yourself, and then we'll take your question and we'll ask it to the specific panelist. Or if you have a question that you want everyone to answer, just state your question, say, I want everyone to answer, and we'll just go down the line from there. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so we can ask our panelists. So I will take a moment to give everyone a chance to ask questions. And then if no one has questions, I'll ask my own questions because I have a few. So
Actually, I have a question for Anne. When you mentioned that come to this country from another country, not speaking, not having a command of English, could you elaborate a bit? You said you read books, and how did was there any support in the I don't know what your education experience was like. Was there any support in the school system, or how did you take that journey? Because quite frankly, I'm always impressed by people who are multilingual. As you probably have learned living here, Americans speak one language, and we're mad at everybody else who doesn't speak ours. Um, just could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I moved from Iraq when I was 6, and my mom had actually previously lived in the UK. And so she was like pretty much fluent in English, but I never like seen English before, or, like learned it. And so when I moved here, it was really funny because they had accidentally like messed up my grade as well. So I was put a grade above the grade I'm supposed to be in. So like I was younger than everybody else by a year. And so I had to kind of catch up like really quick. But my mom used to come into like school whenever she could, especially like on days where we had tests, and she'd just come and like translate word for word, kind of like in English to Arabic. But I'd get the chance to like do everything on my own. So it was just like different languages. Um, but I think that step, I don't remember much from it, but I remember just like reading a lot and picking up a lot of books. And that was kind of like my thing. I'd stay up like past midnight, just like reading all the time. And I used to get books taken away actually from me before bed because I'd always stay up late reading. But yeah, that was kind of pretty much it. And also, I had a really good teacher at the time. Like my second grade teacher was the best teacher ever. And she kind of always stuck through it with me when I was struggling. And I learned English within my very first year and kind of got out of like the English development program my first year as well.
Very impressive. I'm happy to hear that a teacher was supporting you and helping you with that transition. Thank you.
oh, looks like we do have a question. So I'm assuming this is directed at our adult panelists. So we can just go down the line for this. And it says, what did you guys do to get to where you are now? I like your job. And how do you get this opportunity like today to speak to others about your experience? So Mrs. Rudolph, we could just start with you because yeah, you're on my screen as well.
Okay. How did I get to the job I have now? Honestly, it really was a very intentional journey for me. When I graduated from college, that's the question, right? How did I get to the job I have now?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Because I saw another question pop up. That's what I wanted to
Yes,
know.
I just see that. I'll look at that in a second.
I graduated from college, and I started, I got a job, and I was doing something. I was a manager in a financial institution, and I don't know, it didn't thrill me. I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't really interested. After spending a few years there hoping I'd get interested, I decided to, do a bit of career exploration, and I did. I went to many universities offer this even for non-students. There's like a career sort of assessment and a variety of psychometric tests and other things. And I was presented with options. So here are things that based on your interest and your personality and your cognitive abilities that you would be a good career fit for you. And human resources was one of them. So I just worked really hard to move from that into what I was doing in financial institution into HR. I mean, it took a long time. I finally did get someone who gave me an opportunity, and I just built on my skills from there. So it was very intentional for me, and I have to say, I truly love what I do. It can be a really, really difficult job because you do deal with difficult things with people. But it is, first of all, it's never boring. That's for sure. And secondly, it challenges me all the time, and I like it. I love that.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just gonna go down the line for this question because I think this is important for everyone else to speak as well in here. So, Dr. Gergens, could you actually answer the same question, and I'll just repeat it just in case. So it's, what did you guys do to get to where you are now, like your job, and how to get an opportunity like today to speak with others about your experience?
So like I said earlier, when we had our panel discussion, I really wasn't set out to be a teacher. I wanted to be an eye doctor, specifically an eye surgeon. I did pre-med for 2 years at UC Irvine, but chemistry blew me out of the water. I just didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. Like I said, my skill set was with young kids and teaching them. Like Anne, my first language was not English. It was actually Dutch. And so I learned from my mom, like she did, obviously, which was amazing. So bless the moms out there that put the extra effort in. Um, but I just realized that it was something I could do, that I could share my skill, right? That's a huge part, is identifying your skill set. And then how can you share that with the world and make money at it, right? And enjoy it. Because what you enjoy, you will make money, eventually. But today and age, there are so many career assessments out there where I would honestly say take one of those career assessments or inventories, and out will drop out the 20 most specific jobs that fit your personality, your skills, your aptitude, what you like or dislike. And then you can start researching those based on your personality or what sounds interesting. I use those in my classroom today. Once those drop out, I have my students identify two and compare and contrast them and go down the line with different indicators like, what's the length of my day look like? How much salary is there? Do I have to work Saturdays? So for my job, I have to grade, so it's extra time, and my family sacrifices for that. So I'm willing to do it when I have my free time dropping my daughter somewhere and I'm in the car. I just grade really quickly so that I don't have to worry about missing out on an opportunity to be the mom, right? Or to be the wife, or make dinner, throw it in a crock pot, make that happen, make your schedule work for you. But then there are others that don't want to work in an office. They don't want to be inside. And so these careers will pop out from that. How did I get to speak? Honestly, I started off as a teacher, mentor teacher, math specialist, and I just kept moving up. I was a principal in Long Beach as well before I came back to the classroom. That was based on family, first kid, second kid, which time I had, and so on. But those opportunities came because someone found that I had the skill. They pulled me out of the crowd and said, you would be amazing at this. And they gave me the opportunity, and I just took it and ran with it. And then the next job came, and the next job, and it just went really quickly. I like to, I don't know if you want to say brag about it, but I had 7 jobs in 3 years. Long Beach Unified, the superintendent stepped in and said, no, you're this, no, you're this. No, they called me the cleanup queen. I would come in, organize it all, get the job ready, right? Hand it off and train someone, and bam, move to the next one. And literally, it was 6 jobs in like 3 years. I kid you not. But did I learn a lot? Yes. Did I have a great mentor group? Yes. Again, it's not always who you identify. Sometimes it's people identify you and pull you out. So that's kind of how it happened for me. I don't know.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I absolutely love that response and everything, and extremely impressive. Excuse me, Dr. Gupta, do you have a response for that question? Do you need me to repeat it or?
No, I don't need you to repeat it. I would say follow your passion. We talked about that earlier. Do something you truly believe in, something that you feel you would be good in, because then you will excel. So I really like working with people. I wanted to understand what motivates people. I did my PhD in history, but then I also broadened out to gender because gender was something that really fascinated me, and then Asian American studies, and that all basically guided my education to areas that fascinated me. And then I took opportunities, or I would say I created some opportunities. If I saw a lack in some areas. So I took an Asian American Studies class, and I thought, this is great. I will learn about the history of all Asian Americans in the US, including Asian Indians. And very excited when I got on the syllabus, and there was a day of the lecture for on the Asian American population. And the professor said, Asian Indians have been in the US for more than 100 years. And if you want to understand their experience, watch the movie Mississippi Masala. And then he moved on. And I could not believe what I was hearing. So I went to the chair of the department and I shared this experience. And what he said to me is, we don't have enough work in this area. If you want more to hear about this, you're the one who's going to need to produce it. So I did. I took on that challenge. I established an international conference on South Asian women and I ran with it. I ran that for 10 years. And so opportunities like that. So if you see a gap in something, because I was so passionate about my field, I found some way to fill the gap. I published a book on South Asian women and their experiences. So I followed my passion. The other thing is that, and I heard this yesterday, actually from Sheila, who's also on this call, we were talking about opportunities and being ready when opportunities happen. And she was sharing her experience about something, an opportunity she got when she was in Australia that came out of the blue for her to publish a book. And so we were talking about that. If you are passionate about what you do and you are fully immersed in what you do, those opportunities will also come to you. So when I was at UCLA, when I finished my doctorate, I realized, you know what? I've always moved towards being a professor, and I realized that's not what I wanted to do anymore. It really wasn't something I was still feeling excited about. And there was a career fair. And so I went to that fair, and there was a company there in business consulting, which I didn't know anything about. And long story short, I was one of 2 people from UCLA who were recruited to this firm. I explored a whole different career option. And then I thank my then boyfriend, then fiance, and now husband for this. And that he pushed me when I decided to leave, he pushed me to establish my own company because what he said was take everything that you love and put it together into what you want to do. You really want to help people. And so I created that opportunity for myself. I started my own company. And as Dr. Gergens was sharing, is that your career path will change and you have to make it change to what fits your life now. So I've kept running my own company, even though I've had opportunities to go in-house, because the flexibility that it gives me to be with my kids, which is the most important thing in the world to me, that's my priority. And so I'm able to set my own schedule because I have my own company. So these are decisions that you will be making as you continue on your career path and adjust. It's not a straight journey. It's not a straight shot. You're going on this road that goes like this, and there's branches here and there's branches there. And you have to be ready for that and be willing to open your mind to those challenges and those opportunities that come your way. So I made some very deliberate choices in my career. So I'm not on the same path that I was when I started college. I started in a different field. I changed my field, and then I completely went off into a different area. And then I combined everything. But always I have sat there and looked at the reality of my life. There was academic books that I have outlined that I know I will never write because I was bringing up two kids. So your life will put you in situations where you're going to have to make choices. And then you have to be comfortable with those choices and you have to be willing to accept those choices. And different parts of your different times in your life, you will have different choices that you have to face. But if I sum everything up, it's follow your passion, look out for the opportunities that come your way, be ready for those opportunities, be willing to take risks. None of this is without risk. Starting my own company was a huge risk that I took, but it worked out for me and I've adjusted as I went along. So I think that if you pull all of this together and you keep yourself open, you will see things that come your way and you want to be able to jump on them if they are right for you.
That is a really good response. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the other questions. And so this one, it seems like is directed to all of us, but I think I'm going to start with the youth panelists for this and then move on to the adult panelists. So it's, can you explain where your ambition and drive comes from? I'm impressed by the discipline I see from the panelists. I see a lot of apathy in the girls I interact with and would love to know how to spark ambition. Kat, I would actually like to hear from you for this question, and then we can move on to Anne, me, and then we can go on to the rest of the panelists.
Okay, so I feel like my journey with developing my ambition and my passion is very, um, I don't know how to describe it. I'll just explain. In freshman and sophomore year, I think a lot of my ambition and passion came from this very specific goal. It was to get into this one school that I absolutely dreamed of. I was like, this extracurricular is going to get me to this school. This class is going to get me to this school, blah, 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 blah. And I think having that one goal and having just this one expectation of how I wanted my life to be honestly kind of burned me out. By the end of sophomore year, I was like, okay, like I feel like this is not gonna go well. I feel like I should kind of switch gears a little bit before I get my heart broken and just like crash out and you know. So with that, I decided to look upon my passions. I was like, okay, what am I good at? What do I like doing? I liked filmmaking, I liked writing, I liked art. So instead of just doing all the things that I signed up for and all the classes that I signed up for just for the sake of getting into this one school, I said, I think I need some time to really look inside myself and find out what I'm good at and what really just brings me so much joy. And with that, I founded Tangent Zine. And in just 2 years, I found that I have accomplished so much without having like a specific goal of getting into this one school. And that just being able to do something I love and being able to experience the rewards for it, manifest all these things, it's just, it's incredibly, like, it's cathartic, it's, I think that ambition and passion isn't something that you can force, but it's found in taking time for yourself and, you know, trying to remove yourself from the expectation of having this one thing and just freeing yourself to all kinds of possibilities.
I connect with a lot of what you said. I completely agree. Here, and if you have a response to this question, if you do, or else I can say a bit on this topic.
Yeah, I agree obviously with a lot of what Kat said. I think we're all just like really motivated when it comes to like dream schools and stuff. And that was kind of like a huge thing. I would say most of my ambition comes a lot from like my sense of responsibility and like a lot about how like my parents sacrificed a lot of their life to give me a better life. And I've always kind of wanted to honor that by working hard and pursuing something meaningful. And not just that, but I kind of look at my younger self and I'm like, I see her kind of like going through so many changes so quick and also like not really having that voice without like knowing the language that was like commonly spoken here. Um, so I think I really got a lot into education because I found that a lot of students really don't speak up when it comes to really important topics, especially students who have disabilities or struggle with sharing their voice or even don't have anyone to share their voice with. I realized how much impact just one person and one voice could have, whether it was through writing legislation or standing up for something really important. Um, yeah, I think that that's been like really great for me. And also, I realized that as I became more involved, and like the biggest moment for me for this was when it came to the Board of Education Student Board Member Chair, when I was selected as a finalist, I realized that if I didn't really step it up, because I also had a fear of public speaking, I realized that if I didn't step up, I'd be missing a chance to really create real change and speak to other people and meet other people as well. Um, but yeah, I think that encouraging people to dream big and helping them find role models and showing their voice is really huge.
I 100% agree with both you and Kat. For me, it's kind of hard to explain where it's like where your ambition and your drive comes from. I I'm not saying I was born with it or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But like for me, if I just found something that I was interested in, and I think I really like to thank my parents for this a lot because they gave me the opportunity to try like a ton of things. I was able to, well, I did karate, I did dance, I did like all the school activities, I did scouts, I did both of those. I was allowed to do so much and that I was able to kind of figure out what exactly I was passionate about and where I was able to go for it from there. Because I think a lot of this was directed with I had passion for things. And so the best way I can explain is because I had passion and interest in those things, I kind of already had that drive and ambition to just keep going forward with it and work at it. Because in the back of my mind, I always kind of have this idea of try to be the best at something. Well, even if it's like don't just try to do something minimally. Always try to do as much as you can and do like as well of a job as you can in that whatever it is that you're doing. And so like I'm even thinking for scouts and whatnot. When I joined when in the first year that girls were allowed to join and the program. And I think I was 3 years late, maybe, or I was later than everyone else who had originally joined. And I ended up gaining the highest award in, I believe it was under 3 years, which is really was extremely difficult. And I was talking to people, and I was actually the first one of that age group that I had that was all in my age group that I was the first one to get to that position. And it was really just because I went in my head, I kind of made that goal and was like, this is something that I want to do and I'm not going to let anything stop me from doing this. And so all of that drive, it was kind of just me pushing myself forward, setting these little goals. I still like have it like in my desk. I have like these little what are those like 3x5 note cards, and I wrote down every single thing that I needed to do, and I would just check everything off. And so I just kept going on from there. So it's hard to explain where my ambition and drive came from, but I passion I think has a lot to do with it. So I just think that's important. And okay, sorry. Moving on to the next thing. Do any of the adults, Dr. Gergens, Dr. Gupta, Mrs. Rudolph, do you have anything to add on to that for ambition or drive? Um, I'm assuming that's a no. I can't see. Sorry.
No, I think I covered it in my.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you did too. And Maya also. I think it really stems from the parents being able to expose you or you to ask, right? To be exposed to different things, try different things. I always say to my students, find what your skill set is. You're all good. You have a gift. Everyone has at least one gift. Some are blessed with more, but that gift you need to find. And when you find that gift and you're exposed to different things and you try different things, it will open, it will be it will show itself. And so then it becomes relevant to anything you're doing and it will showcase itself. So yeah, I'd say Maya, you found your gift early. You found your few gifts early, which was great. Not everybody does. You just have to kind of keep at it. And when you find it, and then that strength of character follows, the confidence follows, the self-esteem follows. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to direct this next question, starting with Dr. Gupta, because of your background with DEI and everything. It's, can you further elaborate on how to work with sexist coworkers and possibly coaches and bosses as well? I've had experience solving problems with people my own age, but I find it difficult to stand up and call out adults who treat me differently because I'm a teenage girl. So do you have any advice for this?
I'm really sorry, Lauren, that you're having this experience. Unfortunately, it is not uncommon. And hopefully, as we continue to evolve as a society, it will become less and less common. But for today's world, we're still facing it. So I think if you are facing this at work, what you need to do is if you have an HR department, you need to talk to them. You need to talk to your boss. Um, because if they're treating you differently because you're a teenage girl and they're not taking you seriously, etc., then I think you need to bring in somebody with more experience. I think Mrs. Rudolph can also talk about this because she is in HR and very experienced in this area. It can be difficult to call out adults. You've got an imbalance of power. And that's why I'm thinking that if you bring somebody in, they will help you do this. Keep in mind that workplaces today do not tolerate these type of comments. And you have to be able to document. So that's another thing I would say is like keep a document as to date, time, what was said by whom. But I think that because of the power imbalance, bringing in an adult will be much more beneficial to help you address this. Mrs. Rudolph, do you have any further thoughts on this? Because I think this is really up your alley.
Yes, I do. And I mean, I can definitely agree with your first comment. It is not uncommon even today that there's still this kind of interaction and this kind of I'll just say it, discrimination that happens, at work. And I think here's what happens, and not that this is an excuse, but there are, people that just simply don't see that difference because that was their life experience. And it's framed in their view of the world. If it is a work situation, I would definitely reach out to HR, to the manager, unless of course it is your manager that's causing the problem. HR contact, and or again, if you have a mentor, a work-related mentor, that's also someone that you can kind of bounce this idea off of is how do you manage this? When that has been brought to my attention, and as a HR professional, I have, again, without revealing the identity of the individual, I kind of, address it broadly with the organization and understand, like, as we embrace as an organization, diversity, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, that means everyone. And we're not, let's go beyond many people think of that as simply race but it's gender, it's age, it's so many things. So I really do try to, talk about that at a high level and say, and then I break it down into examples for the team. Here's the kind of behaviors we want to avoid. And then I'll say something that is probably exactly what this individual said. They knew who they are, but I didn't call them out publicly. If it's really problematic, I have intervened individually on behalf of employees. I absolutely have. It is a challenging thing to do, but I have it. And then again, from my perspective as an HR professional, I absolutely guarantee to that individual, we have no room for retaliation in this organization. No room. And when I do that, I also have the senior leader, I kind of generally make sure that you're with me on this, right? Because I don't want this, going above me or around me to kind of get support elsewhere. And I mean, honestly, for some, it's simply not, maybe it's a lack of awareness, maybe it's, so I always try to approach it in a little bit of a more of a learning and education perspective. So that I'm not coming across as being, sort of again, pointing somebody out or accusatory or something. But to your point, how do you handle it is to go to a trusted person like a manager, HR, mentor, and say, this is happening. How do I handle this?
I I think that's really good. I will just ask because I think because she's saying if you have any more advice on this, because she's saying a teenage girl, maybe do you have any advice, not in necessarily in perspective of HR and boss, but just maybe with like not mentors, but other teachers or coaches or stuff like that?
If it's teachers or coaches, it's because I was looking at it from a work perspective. So if it is that, again, where, who can you go to? Who is a trusted adult, I guess, you can go to within that organization. So if it's a teacher, if there's someone else, like, many times, there's several like vice principals that handle some challenges with students. I mean, I noticed that in high school before, or there's counseling offices at universities that also could help to, at least help navigate that. And honestly, if it's something really if a student is really being targeted, I mean, there is a complaint process, I would believe. I know in universities, I don't remember much about high school, so I don't know what context we're talking about here. But in that setting, I think there are ways to raise some issues around being treated differently, because I mean, schools have an obligation as well to be fair and equitable in the treatment of students, faculty, et cetera. And you know what, Dr. Gupta and Dr. Gergens, you probably have more experience in that than I do, so I would love to hear your thoughts.
So there is a process. Usually it's posted in the classroom. Oops. And even through court mandated reporting, we're supposed to understand that there is a legal process to go through. So if you have a trusted teacher, the first step would be your counselor. So I would go to your counselor or the department head. If there's a main coach, a head coach that you could go to first. And there's no shame, embarrassment in taking a friend with you that could also be experiencing the same thing. There's safety in numbers, right? And a parent can obviously step in as well. They're your advocate. You're under 18, so your parent has every right to be in a meeting of such as that with you. And I have known parents to go right to the principal if they feel that there is an issue, and that is certainly an option as well. I know in some cases, I've experienced that kind of situation, and I've had to take another teacher in with me as well as a parent, because maybe there's a translation issue with language, or maybe they don't understand the situation. Maybe in their culture, it's not the same. So yes, definitely. In that case, you are not on an even playing field. You have to bring someone in at your age group, at their age group, at their level of understanding, because they're not going to think anything of it, discounting it because you're younger. So yeah, you have to bring in an older mentor, parent, coach, counselor. Absolutely.
Maya, I would add to that. I agree with everything that Dr. Gergens and Mrs. Rudolph had said, but I would add to that sometimes it's a matter of educating the individual. So I will share an example from your childhood. Is when I went to go talk with your third grade teacher, you know how you have those regular parent teacher conferences, and she referred to you as bossy in the classroom. And so I asked her, I said, can you elaborate on that? Can you explain to me exactly what she's doing that you're labeling her this way? And she said, well, she's always volunteering for things. She always wants to, she wants to talk up in a group. She always raises her hand to answer questions. And I thought in my head, okay, that's not bossy. But it was her definition of it. So I talked to her, and then I asked her, I said, if you saw the same behavior in one of the boys in the classroom, what would you label it as? And she just sat there and stared at me for almost a minute. And she said, oh my God, I would not label it as bossy. I would label it as leadership. So sometimes it's also having that conversation. And this is where, when Dr. Gergens was talking, it's appropriate to bring a parent in to something like this. Now, this happened during a parent-teacher conference, but if you were younger, so some of these, we're talking about, older teenage girls, young women, but if you're experiencing this and you're in elementary school or you're in middle school or very early years of high school, there is no problem in going to your parents and talking to your parents about this and letting your parents also be an advocate. What Dr. Gergens was saying is that sometimes it takes a parent to go to the principal. But one of the things that we want to always keep in the back of our mind is that people are probably not coming from a bad place when they are saying something like this. And some of them are, I will absolutely give you that. Some of them are coming from a negative place. But some people, like your third grade teacher, were coming from a place of not understanding, of having their own lens. And this is how we see a female student. And this is where the boundaries of where she should be acting and how she should be behaving. And once it was pointed out to her, she was like, I can't believe I thought that. I'm so embarrassed that here I was trying to pigeonhole her into something that I believed in. So sometimes it's really a matter of educating the people and having that conversation with them.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. So this one is, if a girl/woman you know has a problem relating to sexism in the workplace or social environment, how do I, as a guy, address this without coming off as either performative or indifferent? We can start with you, Dr. Gupta, for that.
So I think that's a great question. And it alludes to something I talked about earlier in our conversation, is that it's not just up to young women and women in the workplace to stand up for themselves. If you see as a guy, if you see this happening, it is also your place to stand up for them and say something and intervene, not because they can't stand up for themselves, but because it adds a second voice to that conversation. So I gave the example of a meeting. I have seen this happening in BSA. I've seen this happening in Girl Scouts. I've seen this happening in so many social environments where men or young boys are talking down to a girl, a young woman, even. And if you are observing this and you don't step in, then you're just a bystander. You're just standing there watching something happen. If you can bring yourself to stand up and say something like, hey, that's not cool. What do you mean by that? Even stopping something as simple, saying something as simple as that and stopping that conversation from continuing will have an impact. So let me give you a couple examples. If you see something happening in a social situation, there is nothing wrong with stepping in and saying, you know what, I'm really trying to understand what you meant by that comment, because it sounded like you were saying X, Y, and Z. But I just want to clarify that you were not being sexist. You were not trying to put this person down. I want to clarify that. I really want to try and understand what you mean. So you're not immediately calling that person out and saying, look, you're being a jerk. What are you doing? You're saying, I want to understand your perspective. I want to understand why you would say something like that. There is a place for men to step in. And honestly, I would argue, and I have argued this in work environments, it's your responsibility to step in. If you are seeing something like this happening and you don't step in, then honestly, you are part of the problem. So the example that I gave was at a meeting, but if you see a social situation where a girl or a young woman is being put down, you should step in and say something. And if the person doesn't like it, then you have to decide whether this is really a person whose opinion you care about. But you've got to stand up for women in the working environment, in the social environment. And you've got to be one of the leaders in trying to stop those comments from taking place.
I would also encourage you to keep notes and a journal on this day. This is what was said in this situation, because when you do have a parent or you or a teacher advocate walk into a meeting, you have specifics that you can address and have facts there. It's not an emotional thing. We want to keep it factual so that everyone can just speak to what actually happened, not what you think or what you're feeling at that moment. Yes, you do have feelings and they are valid, but the facts have to stand alone for the principal to enact and do something about it, or whoever is in charge. So that's important too. Make sure you have your information. And if there were witnesses, absolutely, get the witness account as well. So.
Thank you. I think we can move on to our last question, which I think is actually two, one for the adult and one for the youth panel. So I'll start with the adult panel. It's to work independently and thrive in leadership is not something that you can do easily. So I wonder, how do you cope with the challenges and the stress that they come with? And I understand that the speakers in the adult panel have many more responsibilities further than perfecting their leadership and job skills. So how do you manage this workload and still have time for yourself? So, Dr. Gergens, if we want to start with you.
Wow, that's a loaded question, but it's so important, right? At the age of 8 years old, my mom handed me a date book, and she had me write everything in that date book, my goals, my plans, all my commitments, my homework. And then she said, well, if you have a test on Friday, what are you going to do the rest of the week to prepare for that? So Monday it was read the chapter. Tuesday it was outline. Wednesday it was make a Quizlet. Thursday it was make a practice test so that I'd be ready for the test on Friday. I do the same thing with every event that I do. I backwards plan, I backwards map, including my grocery list on one page, right? My things to do list on every day. Each one of my family members has a color in my book, so I know where they're at, who needs to drive them, whatever. You can put it on an app. Okay, I'm old school, so excuse me for having it down on paper, but I just think that way, right? But I mean, exercise, self-care, all of that has to go in, because you have to have a balance, right? You have to have the balance. So that's how I cope with it, is I have this crazy, calendar system to make sure I fit everything in. And then on top of that, you have downtime. When is the time you're going to have to journal? When is the time you're going to have to read? I mean, Anne, I'm so excited that you get to read. I want to have more time to read. So that's on my list. As you said that, I'm like, yes, I need to calendar that in there as well. Just remembering to put everything in, but also for you, right? Also for you. And use that backwards map plan, that will be helpful for you and other aspects of life as well.
Do any of the other adult panelists have anything to add for that question? Mrs. Rudolph or Dr. Gupta?
So I'd like to second what Dr. Gergen said. When I realized that, when I was writing my dissertation, which is a several-year process, I decided I want to be finished by a certain date. I went out and got one of those huge month at a glance calendars that sit on your desk, the really big ones, and I backward planned my entire 1 year of writing and researching and writing my dissertation, exactly when I would have these chapters done by, et cetera, et cetera. And I stuck to that. Um, the question is also asking about how you manage your workload and still have time for yourself. I would say that depending on what stage in life you're in will help you figure out whether you even have time for yourself or not. I have struggled with this. This is something a lot of women struggle with, this is finding, I don't call it balance because I think it doesn't always balance out. When your kids are younger, so if you have children, first of all, it completely changes your life, in a very good way, but it completely upends your life. And they have to come first in anything and everything that you do. They've got to come first. And so certain things you want to do are put on the back burner. So I mentioned that I have 5 books outlined, and ready to sit down and write. And those have been outlined for years now. But because of kids, I could not get to them. And I had to come to, figure out, am I ever going to get to them? And if I'm not, then I have to be at peace with myself. So your goals change and things that you want to do in life change and adjust as you adjust to the realities of having a family and a career, because they are difficult to manage. I try and find small pockets of time. And now that my kids are older, I can say to them, I need 15 minutes. I need 30 minutes. I'm going to go upstairs and get on the exercise bike, or I'm going to go for a walk or something like that. But you have to be intentional. As Dr. Gerkens was saying, I've actually started putting it into my calendar and blocking out times and saying, I will not start my meetings until this time because I need this time in the morning to do X, Y, or Z. Now, I'm at a point in my career where I can do something like that. When you're first starting out, you can't dictate a lot of these things into how you're going to schedule your day. You've got to take it as it comes. So, one, making sure that your partner is doing their half. There is nothing in our genes that say only women can raise kids, only women can change diapers. Your partner has to fulfill their equal 50%. And some days it'll look more like 70-30, some days it'll look more like 90-10. But at some point, you have to make sure that they are also fully supporting you and you're not carrying the workload by yourself. And that's something that women have sometimes a hard time asking for and saying, because we feel like we're supposed to be able to do all of this ourselves. And we can't. It's just not possible. So your partner in life has to be willing to put in an equal amount of time and effort and energy in order to make it successful, and in order for you to also be able to have a successful career. So I think it shifts depending on where you are in your life journey. When it's just you, it's much easier to manage putting some time in for yourself, but you're also probably at the beginning of your career where you're working very, very long hours. When you're in a relationship, you've got to consider the other person's needs as well. When and if you have children, because it's not a given that you're going to have kids, but if you decide to have children, then your priorities again will shift. So at different stages in your life, you will be juggling different things, and you have to be able to be comfortable with that. And there's nothing wrong with paying for someone to clean your house. There's nothing wrong with childcare. There's nothing wrong with saying, I need a half hour to myself. But we as women tend to, at least our generation did, tend to shy away from that because we are brought up with the thing that you have to do it all. I'm seeing it different in your generation, which I'm really happy to see that shift, and seeing that you are more saying, look, I need time to do myself some stuff for me too. So I think it's really difficult to do that, but you have to be very intentional and recognize that it's going to be different in different stages of your life.
And if I can just add to that, we've all, we have the three of us here have different industries and careers, but I think we all struggle with the same thing. There's only 24 hours in a day, no matter how we try to stretch that. So, and to Dr. Gupta's point, when, you're starting out in your career, you have zero or very little, for the most part, flexibility in your schedule. I think that is changing, I have to say. There's still some, hybrid jobs out there, which is kind of nice. It gives you a little bit of flexibility. But when there's not, the best thing I can say, two things: prioritize and find a way to prioritize yourself. When someone talks to me about work-life balance, I said, no, there's no balance. There's integration. Work is part of your life, but you also fit your life around your work or into your work. And for me, what I have done, and because I literally just start my day earlier, and that time is me. And that has been my way of finding, as Dr. Gupta said, that pocket of time, because it's before work starts. It was before, when I did have children, before the children were awake, and it was just all about me. So I would usually exercise or do something like that I felt like, okay, I've taken care of myself. Now I can start on the treadmill of my life for the rest of the day, and whatever that is, right? So, but I mean, even throughout the day, find those pockets of time to, and it could be 15 minutes. 15 minutes can really restore you. It really can. I know it's not a lot, but find those pockets of time and find those things you enjoy, but prioritize. And, to your point, again, Dr. Gupta, ask for help. Absolutely. Do not think everything, nothing will get done unless you do it. I will say, as women, it will probably get done better if you do it. No offense, guys. I'm sure you're just amazingly talented. But, we have, everybody thinks that their own way is the best way, right? Let go of that. Just let go of that. So, if your husband makes some weird thing for dinner, or your male partner or your brother or whoever, and you're like, okay, that looks great, even though it doesn't. But you didn't have to do it. So that is still something, honestly, I struggle with. It's like, but let go of it. let somebody else do it. And whatever the result is, it is fine. It is absolutely fine. And that is, it helps with finding that time for yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This whole thing that women have in that we have been taught, at least our generation, that we have to be perfect in everything. Our house has to look a certain way, our bed has to look a certain way. You've got to let go of that. You absolutely have to let go of that. And however it's done, it's fine. My kids clean the kitchen differently than I do. And I have to be at peace with that because otherwise I'm going to sit there and clean up after them. And that takes away time that I could be reading a book. I could be exercising. I could just be sitting quietly in my backyard and enjoying nature and decompressing. So let go of this whole thing that we have to be perfect.
Thank you. All right, I think I'm going to move on to it seems like this is our last question, and this one's directed towards a youth panelist. I think we kind of have touched on a lot of this before, so we can be brief, but it's as young women in society, we have established how hard it is to be confident. How do you, as a teenager, maintain the ideology of your own self and manage the ideology that others have on you?
I can take this one, if you don't mind, Anne.
No, go.
Okay. So I think I touched on this before, but being sure to listen to the people that you look up to and the people that you would trust, um, talking to you about your career or your goals in life. I mentioned my story with my English teacher and my guidance counselor. I think that they were really pushing this view of myself that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't as good as even my male counterparts. And I think that maintaining faith in myself and being sure to, block all the noise out. Like horses have blinders on for a reason, and just being able to really focus in on my beliefs and on the people that supported me and had faith in me.
I like the response. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I have a good response for this question. And do you have anything or
I was just gonna say, like, make sure you know your values and really spend time reflecting on what really matters to you and what you're passionate about and the kind of person you want to be. So, like, just have a clear sense of what your values are and make sure that your decisions align completely with who you are rather than what other people expect for you. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say for that.
I think the only thing I can add is I love both of you guys' responses, absolutely. I have a perception of like myself and what I am and whatnot, and then I understand that like it's hard when other people like they expect things of you or you think that they have this idea of what you should be. For me, it's really I have to stay true to myself, and obviously I accept the opinions and everything of others, absolutely. And because most of the time people are out there to help me and give me advice and everything like that, my peers, my mentors, absolutely. But for like managing what other people's expectations of me is, I really kind of just focus on myself and what I think is best for me while taking in the advice of other people. It's a hard question to answer. I'm trying to figure out like what's a good way to, but I think that's the best I got for this. So thank you to everybody for answering all those questions. Or sorry, answering all those questions, and then thank you to the audience for asking these questions. We're just going to move on to I'm putting this into the chat right now. If you just give me 1 second. It's a very, very short questionnaire that I would really like if everyone in attendance, including the speakers, as well, could fill out. It's basically it's a Google form, which is the 5 next steps. And so I would love if everyone could just take maybe 7-10 minutes or so. Think about what you will do next after hearing from all these women and our panelists, and then the questions and the answers and the advice that they've given, and just think about what are 5 things that you are now going to do differently, or 5 things that you've learned that you'll be able to pass on and you'll keep with you in the future. So I put that form in there. So if we could just take a little bit of time to answer that, that would be really good. And then we'll move on to the conclusion and closing up of the conference. And let me know if you guys can see the form and everything. So someone please tell me that you can view it. Just want to make sure.
Yes, I could download it.
Perfect. Okay, so then if you guys could fill that out, that would be amazing. So we can just take a bit of time to do it. Panelists included. So thank you. I'm just going to take one more minute or so for people to finish up any responses that they have left. I'm just like monitoring who's submitting them. And then I'll move on to closing comments and thank yous and everything. So maybe I'll give it about one more minute. Okay, all right. I think I'm gonna move on to my closing comments and thank yous. So, as we close this conference, I would firstly like to begin with some thank yous. First off, I would love to thank my speakers for being here to share my wisdom with all of the attendees and inspire them to do great things in the future. And as a special thank you from me, in a few weeks, you will all be receiving speaker gifts that I've picked out. So I'll be delivering those or mailing those off to you guys as a token of gratitude from me for sharing your knowledge to you all. So thank you so much for that. I would like to again thank Girls Inc. for supporting me in this conference and helping to share the message of empowerment to all the young girls out there. Girls Inc., like I said, is such an incredible organization, and I sincerely hope some of you consider volunteering there and supporting their continued efforts towards the empowerment of women. I have all of their information linked on my conference website, so you can access them there, or you could even just look up the Girls Inc. Orange County chapter, and they have contacts and volunteer events and everything like that. And then I would also like to thank Girl Scouts for giving me the opportunity to be able to host this conference and talk about things that are so meaningful and important to me. This conference is a project for my Gold Award, if I hadn't stated that already, but hosting a conference is something I've always wanted to do, to speak in front of you all and share my journey as well as others with the hope that it might have some impact on you guys, however small it may be. Public speaking is not something that used to come naturally to me, but because of programs like Girl Scouts, Girls Inc., and all of the panelists who I consider to be my mentors, I feel entirely more self confident and comfortable with leading you all on this path to change. And then, lastly, of course, I would love to take my parents and my friends for helping support me with throughout this conference. Without their help, I really do not think this would have gone through completely. So, a special thank you to them. And as we look ahead and finish up, I want to remind you all that this conference is just the beginning. The journey towards self confidence and self esteem is ongoing, and it requires continuous effort and dedication. There will be challenges along the way, but remember that you are not alone. You have a community of supporters who believe in you and are here to help you succeed. This conference is proof of that you have all of these supporters and people here who are willing to share their story and their voices with you all. Empowerment is not just about words, it's about action. So I challenge each and every one of you to take what you have learned here today and put it into practice. Set those goals for yourself, take risks, and step out of your comfort zone. Believe in your abilities and know that you have the power to make a difference, whether it be in your school, your community, or the world at large. Your voice matters, and your actions can create positive change. I would again like to sincerely thank all of you for attending and hope that the message we have shared with you truly resonates with you all and inspires you to keep moving forward with these words in mind. And like I said, I think a bit earlier, I wish to end with one of my favorite quotes that really sticks with me. And I said I constantly repeat this to myself whenever I need encouragement or reason to keep on going and moving forward. And that is, be the change you wish to see in the world. So thank you all again. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and continue to grow into the inspired individuals I know you to be. Thank you so much for attending. So go have lunch. Have a good time. Thank you.